Welcome back. This really mini video just shows you actual photos of the things that we talked about in the last mini video. So we're going to look at the pine tree life cycle, the picture book version, and we'll start with the pine tree. And the pine tree, remember, is the sporophyte generation. So in answer to the question on your lecture guide, what is the dominant phase of the pine tree life cycle? Well, obviously it's the sporophyte, the diploid generation. And this is true for any gymnosperm. So there we have pictures of pine trees. Now, pine trees have pine cones, and the pine cones are, so the sporophyte is the spore plant, and the pine cones are the spore leaves, the sporophylls. And we have, whoops, sorry about that, two types of pine cones. What you call the pine cone is actually the ovulate cone. And again, each leaf is the sporophyll, or in this case, because it's the female cone, it's the megasporophyll. So what you call pine cone is actually the ovulate cone or the seed cone. And here are the pollen cones. They are smaller and softer. You might think of them as fleshier, and they produce pollen. And again, each little lobe here is the microsporophyll. So as we go on, the pollen cone produces pollen, and hopefully you remember the pollen grain is the blank gametophyte. So hopefully you know that's the male gametophyte. And here you see a pollen grain sprouting, germinating. And well, basically what it's forming here is the pollen tube, and here it's two pollen tube nuclei, and they are the tailless sperm. So they will go down the little pollen tube, and one of those nuclei will fertilize the egg inside the ovule that is part of the female gametophyte. And when so again, the pollen has to go work its way in here into each little bracket here and find the ovule and sprout the little tube, fertilize the egg, and then the fertilized egg is inside the seed. These are naked seeds because they're not in a fruit. All right, so you've probably seen these paper-like thin little, here's the fertilized ovule. So this is the seed, the naked seed. It's very paper thin at the end, and this is what falls to the ground. Or if you get a pine cone, you find these papery seeds on top of every bracket. And when the seed falls to the ground, it germinates into a baby pine tree, which again is the next sporophyte generation. So there's your pictures. And the big question is, does the pine tree require water for its sex life? Did the sperm have to swim through water to fertilize the egg? And obviously, the answer to that question is a huge no. And so this is why pollen was a huge, huge, huge invention on the part of the seed plants. All seed plants, whether they're gymnosperm or angiosperm, produce pollen. And again, the pollen grain delivers the sperm, the tailless sperm, directly to the egg, and it does not swim through water. So there you go. And all we have left to do in the plant kingdom are the angiosperms, or the flowering plants. I'll see you.